Had a really interesting conversation with Dr. Ned again. It's just an absolute joy. A lot of fun. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click that button. That's a big deal. I appreciate your time. Today we cover some stuff. He's a serial entrepreneur, but I think even more like a problem solver. We talk a little bit about even stories when he was 7 years old, how he started to observe things that I know at 7 I wasn't observing, and a lot of things from there. So a lot of fun. Always great with Dr. Ned. Click the button for me. Really appreciate you. You're going to enjoy this one.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome to the Dan DeVerna podcast, where we talk about business, life, and how to win at both.
So, cheers.
Cheers. Pinky cheers.
Pinky cheers. So it's funny, after our last conversation that we had, probably the most independently of all the podcast things I've done, I had more people shoot to me individually with follow-up things, asking about you. And so I just gave him all your phone number and said, go ahead and just ask him directly, because I'm not going to answer all these questions. This is ridiculous. So, but the very first one was they were asking me, how do you have so much time to do all those different things? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't think he sleeps a lot, but I'm not exactly sure, because people are really intrigued by people that have the discipline to be doing so many different kind of, we're just doing different, whether it's projects or hobbies or jobs, or serial entrepreneur was one of the things that somebody had mentioned. So could you speak to that a little bit? Because that is, it's a lot of stuff that you're doing.
It's a lot of stuff. I've been a big proponent of investing in human capital. So if you find the right person, it may take time for you to find the right person, but you find the right person for the correct task, it makes my job a lot easier. Frees up time for me. So I think you have to invest in human capital. You have to invest in the right person. You have to balance being patient time-wise while you're looking. And so there's always going to be a little bit of give and take, what kind of qualities are we looking for an individual for a particular task. I think when you balance what your needs are and what your wants are with finding an individual, and then giving them an opportunity to really spread their wings and put their style into what you're trying to achieve. So I think finding the right person is key. You just need one for a particular project, and they can run with your vision. So I think that to me, that's the most important thing, is finding the right person and having them stay with you for the right reasons. And I think what that right reason is, a combination of being independent, thinking independently, thinking creatively, and being able to execute what the task is, without losing sight of what your primary vision is of a particular project. Mm-hmm. In a nutshell, I would just say human capital is what you have to invest in.
So that doesn't sound like, so with the way the question was posed to me was does he sleep at all? So first of all, let's just talk about that. Okay. What's a normal day look like for you? Or is there such thing as a normal day?
That varies from day to day, but I usually get between 4 to 5 hours of sleep a day on average. Mm-hmm. But going back to having free time, most of the time that I'm awake, I'm really not doing much except for trying to think through a problem. But trying to figure out, trying to answer the question, how do you have enough time to address all these different projects? You have to have the right people with you that can free up some of your time to address issues with other tasks, or issues with the same task that maybe cannot be handled by your right-hand person.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So I think that is a primary way to improve use of my time and maximize my use of time is finding the right people to work with.
So a little bit more of who instead of how is what you're looking for the right person to get something accomplished instead of thinking of what you're trying to get accomplished.
Yeah. So if for example, if how long do you wait to before you secure that right person? And that exact right person is probably never going to come along, but how close can you get to that right person? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it has to be addressed. You get lucky and you find that right person out of the gate, and things are great. But sometimes you don't find that right person. So how much time do you budget for each step of the way until you find that right person? For example, if I can see a project from beginning to end, but I don't have the time to do it, but I have some knowledge of knowing how to get there, I'll take on maybe 90% of the responsibility and find somebody that can do at least 10% of the work that I need done. Mm-hmm. And then I'll find somebody who can do maybe 20% and then 30% and 40% until I have enough time, until I find the right person where I can give up a lot of that control or tasks to your right-hand person type of thing. So it may take some time, but what I sometimes do is, well, what do I need help with now? Let me find that person to help me with this task now until I can find the next person. Because you know that they're not going to have the skills. And I think being upfront with the people you're dealing with, saying, hey, I just need you to do this. And once I can accomplish that, we're going to go to the next step. And they know that they don't have the skills for that next step. So, you're not really trying to mislead them, but you're being realistic about what my needs are and what they can expect from me in terms of the scope of the project or the responsibilities.
Yeah. So you're not necessarily looking to, in some cases, I'm sure it evolves that way, but when you're looking for someone to help you with projects, like you're comfortable with giving away whatever you can of the project. So if you've got 100% and you found the perfect person, you might be able to line it up to eventually them be doing 100%. And then the next time or on a different project, you might say, geez, for their field of expertise, I only feel comfortable giving them this sliver of what needs done.
I think the best example is with PMG. I think I said this before. They don't need me. I can drop dead today, and that people still have jobs tomorrow, and it'll still function as it functions today, tomorrow.
Okay.
So I think to me that's would be a goal of whatever I develop. I can have a hand in it. And clinically, I still do have a hand in PMG on the clinical side, but not the business side.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good one. So that's a great example. It leads me into another question that was there. So which part of this process, so if we take the PMG from the beginning to the end, obviously a very successful journey, which part of that journey is the exciting part to you? Is all the excitement at the beginning when it's kind of your brain working on it and trying to map that out, or do you enjoy certain parts of the process even now later on with PMG, now that you've got it so far along? Like what excites you? Like what inspires you?
I think it's the excitement varies. I think each step is exciting in its own way. Mm-hmm. For example, I remember when I was a solo practitioner in Findlay, newly started out, and I was looking for a full-time nurse, and the excitement I had when I found that's the nurse that I could work with. Mm-hmm. I was so excited. And that nurse still works with me to this day in that Findlay office in a different capacity. That was very exciting to find that right person, the first nurse that is going to jump in the water with you. Mm-hmm. That was great. That's very exciting.
It's very exciting.
But now you fast forward to this year or last year during the pandemic, we never let go of anybody from PMG. Mm-hmm. We were able to utilize those the loans effectively to keep people's jobs. We even gave them a bonus at the end of the year. So we didn't lose anybody. To me, that's also very exciting.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. They kept their jobs. some may or may not rely on that as a primary income or a significant portion of their income, but they didn't lose their jobs, and they got a bonus on top of that. So that is really exciting. So I think it is excitement on a different level.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, I like that you don't have an attachment to, like, you have an attachment to finding someone, but you don't have an attachment to what they're going to be qualified and able to do.
Human capital.
Yeah.
So if you find somebody who's really, really talented, but you would hate to let them go, I think you would try and find a place for them in a project, and hopefully they'll be a great contributor to that project. Mm-hmm. I think you got to roll the dice sometime and finding, picking the right person, maybe not for the right task, but it is the right person. And I think at some point you would hope that they would learn the system, or learn to sort of see your vision and work with you and be creative and all that kind of stuff. So I think investing in that right person is very important.
Yeah.
Remember, it goes back to, being excellent. That nurse I know is probably not the best. She was brand new, recent grad, mm-hmm. but you could sense excellence in the way she asked questions and the way she carried out a request. You had a sense that, wow, she's really excellent at what she does because she does care a lot.
Yeah.
And so, finding that excellence in somebody and applying their talents in a way that's useful for a project, I think is exciting.
I think it's really exciting. It's funny because we're like walking through some of the questions that I got from people, and that was another one that I got by more than one person who said, "Hey, I wish you would have asked them more questions about at the beginning of that podcast when you were talking about excellence, like, I'd be an excellent this, or you'd be an excellent that, or like whatever the job is you're doing, like there's always a calling for excellence. There's always room for more people that are really good at what they do, right? And so, like, speak to that a little bit more, and maybe we can dig down a little bit on that.
Can you rephrase that?
Yes.
I guess that's a big question.
It's a big question. So if I was going to try to bring it down a little bit to a little bit smaller question, I think that when we're talking, and one of the questions came from somebody that's like quite a bit younger, like in that college age, and they were thinking about changing their job, like what they're going to college for, so that they can make more money. And then I was like, well, here's another side of that. Like, you should, if you can find something you love and you're going to be one of the best at that, like that's going to bring you more happiness, and you're going to make plenty of money, because people that are excellent at whatever they do.
Yeah, that's a great question. See, to me, I think money is relative. What's a lot of money? A lot of money for you is different from a lot of money for me, and
sure,
what's different from a lot of money for somebody else.
Yeah.
So what is a lot of money? And I remember once meeting this person who said that I think they had to change their major because she said, I just want to go to something that makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
And she's an investment banker. But I don't know how good she is, but she made that change. To me, I think there's nothing wrong with trying to earn more money, but that's relative. But my point last time was, if you do what you love doing and you're really, really good at it, you are going to make money. How much money, what's a lot for that individual, I don't know. But there's going to be a market for you. That you will not have difficulty finding a job.
Yeah. So do you think you've always, like when you were much younger, was it instilled upon you, or did you naturally come about it? Or have you ever really thought about you being excellent? Or do you just think of that now that you're established in who you are, you're looking at it to other people thinking, I'd like them to be excellent? Or do you look around the room and you see 20 people and you can tell that one's excellent and that one's excellent, and this is how.
I can usually pick out who the really smart people are. And smart is a weird word, but I mean, like
It
people
is a
who
weird word.
people who are I guess who are talented. I guess maybe it's a better word. People who are talented,
Maybe.
really talented, and I think that because I was not really talented at anything, and so I used to be like, wow, that person's a really good tennis player, or that person's a really good artist, or look at that person's really into a great into English and literature, and so I could see that people are really good at some things. I mean, things that I liked. I mean, I like literature. I like art. I like music. I like tennis. I'm not good at any of those things.
Yeah.
But I can tell who's really good at it. And I was like, boy, it'd be awesome to be like that person. So knowing that sometimes talking to the people who you think are really, really talented improves on what I was trying to do. For example, if someone's a really good tennis player, I'd go up and say, hey, your backhand is really, really good. Like, how do you prep for something like that? What are your little tricks or whatever you're doing? Because I knew they're really good, but I didn't know how they got there.
Right.
How much coaching was involved. So asking them, I think, was important to sort of improve myself to my level of whatever I was doing, whether it was art or whether it was tennis.
Yeah.
So I was never afraid to ask questions, and I think that's one thing that people who are excellent at what they do, they tend to ask more meaningful questions because they want to improve as well.
Yeah.
People ask questions all the time, but who are the ones that are asking meaningful questions? Maybe that one question, but out of all the questions I had to answer, that was a really good question.
Yeah.
So I think the really talented people tend to ask the right meaningful question.
And smart, I think, when you say a lot of money, you're thinking it's relative. And when you're talking about smart,
It's relative.
it's relative too, because there's so many different elements.
So I guess
to
talent
smart.
is a better word.
Maybe. I mean, I still like smart because there's a lot of different versions of it. There's some people that are so intelligent, but they can't communicate any of that. And then there's other people that are really great communicators that aren't really.
It's so funny you say
smart.
that. Could you imagine? Look at all the great basketball players that are out there, and how many of them are good coaches?
Right.
I mean, you look at a lot of the good coaches were never really great
Correct.
at their position, maybe even.
Yeah.
I mean, Doc Rivers is a great coach, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't a great player.
He's
all right.
He's real good.
He's real
That's
good,
it.
but that's
Yeah.
good. I mean,
Yeah,
Michael
right.
Jordan wasn't a good coach.
Right.
I mean, do you think Jabbar would have been a good coach? Or Bird was the only one. Bird was a great coach, great player, great administrator. He was an amazing guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting observation because most people they find their sweet spot and I've been around, I don't know how many professional athletes you've been around, but I've been around some that were good at what they did, but now they're not doing that anymore. And it's almost like they're looking back thinking like those were their best days, And so it's hard. It would be a hard transition to when you were so great at something to find your next thing you'd be great with.
I'm wondering if those great people were so good at what they do that it's hard for them to explain how they did it.
Yeah.
How does Wayne Gretzky explain why he was great? Besides you got to be where the puck's going to be.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever that saying was.
Which you wonder how much of that is instinct.
The ones who how much of that is instinct, as opposed to the ones who have to try and be good in a competitive environment. They had to be better communicators.
Right.
They're the ones asking questions. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just sort of noticed that you never find usually a great player to also be a great coach.
Well, and then
Except for Bird.
but you get some of the guys and that just it's their work ethic on top of the natural talent. And they just were, I think Kobe Bryant was a great example. No matter what was happening, he was getting, like, he realized that everybody was practicing 2 times a day. And so he built his schedule so that he could get a third practice in every day. And so just think about how many more hours of time, whatever he's working on, the discipline that he was working on, how much extra time he was able to get to be, to become that, and then work with the best people for keeping your body where it needs to be and your head where it needs to be, etc.
Work ethic, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you need that in the mix, don't you?
You do need that in the mix. I mean, for sure. There's, if somebody's working 80 hours and they're against somebody working 40, the math works out pretty quick. It doesn't take very long. 1 year, 2 years, you're seeing a lot of difference pretty quick.
It's sort of like how do you keep people engaged, and and how do you keep them moving forward? And I think it's just a matter of having that right person that you're working with, and that I think that where they can be a little bit creative in what they want to do, and it keeps, I think, them motivated and trying to having them know that this is their baby too, type of thing, and I'm going to move it forward. Yeah. So and work ethic goes along with that. So you have to have that drive. I mean, it's a full package. But again, if I had to pick one thing again to free up time again, is you got to pick the right person to work with.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about that, and I'm here with Dr. Ned. We're kind of rehashing some of the things that we had talked about before. But I like the idea of what you're saying with finding the right person, because sometimes that job, like the way that you're doing it, it sets up a system for success, because you're not setting unrealistic expectations for someone that can't handle that. So you're not taking the person that can do half the job and requesting that they do all the job. Like, it's great if they could do more, that'd be fantastic. But it's also great if they can do that half really, really well.
Really well.
And maybe you find somebody else to do the other half, or maybe you're managing the other half. But it's a way more successful than running in and going, I'm all in with Billy. And when Billy drops the ball, we wasted all the energy on Billy, and Billy's disappointed and we're disappointed.
You can't set somebody up for failure. I mean, you can't have unrealistic expectations of somebody. That's why I said, finding the right person, even if it's to do 10% of the work if it's to do 10% of the work when you wanted somebody to do 50% of the work, well, I want to take that 10% from a really good person. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's you're setting yourself up for success. Instead of having too high of expectations and being disappointed, which seems like a more natural way to do it.
No one's happy. I mean, the person that you're working with is going to be they'll be disenchanted, like, oh, this kind of sucks. I mean,
right.
But tell me, this is where, what are you good at? Okay, you're going to be doing this portion. These are my expectations of you on this 10%, but that 10% better be really, really good.
Yeah.
And so I think it's within their wheelhouse. If it's in the wheelhouse, and then they execute at a high degree, and then maybe then some, I think that you're not setting them up for failure, and they're rewarded at the end with a good product.
So here with Dr. Ned, and we're covering like all kinds of ground, but I think I think when I was going back through thinking about all the questions, because our chat went long, but it didn't seem long. It seemed like just a couple minutes to me. But we talk, now and again, we spend some time chatting.
It was a great first date.
It was a great first date. It was way above average.
Couldn't wait for the second
and
one.
Here we are. I was excited.
I missed you.
Up. I had my jacket pressed and ready.
You're very handsome, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And you too.
Thank you.
Very cozy and warm.
Yeah, it's kind of chilly out there.
It is a bit brisk. Yeah.
Crisp.
Yes, crisp for sure. So I was in Dallas at the tail end of that storm that just happened here. By the time this airs, it'll at least be a couple weeks. But it's interesting to see how Ohio can address those things in comparison to what I saw in Dallas. Like just the cold, like people don't know how to drive in it. There's no shovel, like things that we just take for granted, like a shovel. Mm-hmm. Like they don't have shovels, they don't have the salt, they don't have the trucks to move the stuff, they don't have any of the stuff. So we're so blessed, and then this is the first year we've really had a really cold winter for the last like 5, 6, 7 years. So it's just part of living in Ohio.
And it doesn't bother me. It's 2 weeks out, 2 weeks out of the year.
Right. It's really not that bad. It's very pretty.
Yeah.
And it also, I think now we're in the home stretch.
I think so. Hope so.
The
big melt.
The big melt's going to be happening here in the next few
That's
days.
a lot of dog poop in that river.
That's a lot of dog poop. It's going to happen. So when I'm thinking about, so we kind of covered some of the basics of things, but I think a thing that was exciting to me was hearing all the things that you're doing and you saying, oh, like this seems like a real problem. I think I'm going to fix this problem. So it made a ton of sense when you were talking about you inventing this thing with the lungs but then when you started to go to this exercise thing, and then we talk about something regarding medical stuff, and then we talk about something regarding transportation. Would you say that you have a lane? Like your lane is like 11 lanes. I was like I'm in Atlanta and I've got to pick, like we're driving down and we got to, pick a lane. Like, I don't know which lane. Like I have a lane, and I thought it was really interesting that you what's the next thing? Well, I don't know. Maybe you don't know. And then you see like this person that's having a hard time getting their tennis shoe on, and you're like, oh, I'm going to invent something to make it easier for them to put on their tennis shoes. Like maybe they can put on their tennis shoes standing up. Like, I don't know, like without having to sit down.
You take the open lane.
Yeah.
Whatever lane's open.
So is that like how is the kind of like the radar running all the time? Like in your mind, are you just like looking around and waiting to feel it, or are you going to see it, or are you thinking about it consciously? Like, I'm curious to that because not many people's brains operate like that.
I don't know. I think you're really over. I mean, it's just a mindset. I think that do you actually ever stop thinking about work? I mean, everything in your waking time, unless you're completely distracted from work, you're probably thinking about something that's work related or can touch upon something at work, or you can relate it to something that you did at work. Mm-hmm. I bet you that's probably. But I would bet you 90% of the time is when you're awake, it's probably thinking about that. Mm-hmm. So what I like to do is think about, well, when are you completely distracted? When are you not thinking about work at all? Mm-hmm. And to me, it's I can only give you one example of when it's really, really relaxing. And I did it for the first time maybe, 15 years ago. I've never owned a gun. I have a couple of guns now, but I never owned a gun before or shot a gun or anything like that. It takes me to go skeet shooting up on Central Avenue over here. And I'm like, all right, what do I do with this thing? You just walk in here and rent a gun, and they give you bullets too. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he taught me just the basics of how do you aim at a target, your breathing, your stance, your form, and you have to concentrate. Then you introduce this moving object skeet shooting. So now you're working on your form and your breathing and your target, and you don't think about anything else.
Right.
You don't think about work. You don't think about the kids.
Yep.
You don't think about anything.
Yeah.
Since that time, that was the first time that I think I ever was able to focus on something with a singular purpose without having to think about anything else.
Yes.
It was so rewarding.
Yeah.
So when you say, like, what do you always think about? It's like you're always thinking about work stuff, when you're awake most of the time.
Yeah.
But it was, I think for me, it's a lot more important to find more things like skeet shooting.
Yeah. So that is exactly what I love the most about martial arts. I explain it. So when I do two different versions of martial arts, and the first version is like a striking. And so you really have to be not just conscious of you, because you could get hurt. Like if we're sparring, someone could hit me. I have to be engaged. But also, even worse, I could hurt the person I'm with. So I have to be extremely, right there, present.
You can't lose focus.
Can't lose focus.
It's very relaxing, isn't it?
It's fantastic. Because when you walk in, we bow when we enter the dojo, and it's almost like if you have all these things, these stresses that are on your shoulders, you bow, and we'll leave them at the door. We'll grab them on the way out. If we even think to grab them on the way out, we might just leave them there,
How many jujitsus do you know? That I mean, like not in the sense that how many different forms of jiu-jitsu. I'm asking you,
Yeah.
the mental escape.
Yeah.
How many different forms of that mental escape do you have access to besides jiu-jitsu? Zero. Three.
Meditation, which is really hard.
That's bullshit.
It's simple, but
That's
it's
bullshit.
hard.
That's bullshit. Because when you meditate, you think about something else too.
You
can't focus on meditating. Don't give me that.
Okay. Well, I would say that would be my first like the martial arts. That's got what introduced me to the meditation. And the meditation that I do is just thinking of the breath, and then when something else comes in, which inevitably it does every couple seconds,
There you go.
and then you like just throw it out, and it's just like a muscle. You're like working it out. You like throw it out, and then I'm there, and then no, I'm not there anymore.
But for that half an hour, 45 minutes, when you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're
there.
laser focused. There's no 5-minute filtration thing of something else coming into your mind. You're there that whole time.
I mean,
Even 5 minutes.
yeah,
You're there for 5 minutes. What can you do for 5 minutes that's where you're that focused?
yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's just not, so maybe there's those two things, and they're both martial arts related,
Yeah.
which might be why I'm so into the martial arts.
Hard to find the next jiu-jitsu analogy.
I would say if you gave me a gun, though, because my dad, my whole family is very familiar with guns, and I'm not. Like, I own a couple guns, but I keep them at my dad's. Like
Yeah.
That's the kind of where we're at. I'm not super comfortable, but if you put a gun in my hand, you'd have all my attention, because I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt myself.
Sure.
I'm not that comfortable. I'm not that familiar. Like, is that how you felt? Or were you like, oh, this is, I mean, you just
I felt
love it,
afraid.
or did
No,
you felt scared?
I felt afraid when I first picked up a gun because I didn't want to hurt myself or anybody else.
Yeah.
But once I became more comfortable with a rifle, shotgun, it was so liberating to just focus on that one thing for a brief 15 seconds or a brief 20 seconds, whatever those seconds were.
Yeah.
To not think about anything else, from just before saying pull to squeezing the trigger. I'll take those 15 seconds over and over again if I could.
So have you done that since? Like, or do you do it every once in a while?
No, I
or-
don't know. I have no set schedule, but it was such a great feeling. I wish I could do more of it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that triggers that, like that inspiration or something else that you're like, oh, actually, now that I think about it, this also did something similar to that?
Nothing.
Yeah.
No, even if you're sitting on a beach somewhere, you think about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You're not really focused.
Mhm.
When you're watching a movie, your mind wanders. My mind wanders watching a movie.
For sure.
Any sporting event, doesn't matter what it is, your mind always wanders.
Yeah.
But this was just singular. It was great.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's
They should make
interesting.
women like that.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Of course. Yeah.
No, where I'm focused on something.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like it's really an interesting thing because people think that they're focusing on something. And then well, it's a really bad term. It's a good term, but it's just a fake to say I'm multitasking. Like, what do you have any thoughts or feelings on multitasking?
I think it's sort of. I think I don't know how to define multitasking. I know that it can be non-productive at times, but I think at times it can also be productive.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know it depends on what you're multitasking and who you're multitasking with.
Yeah. I suppose the idea of it, I don't think our brain works that way, at least most of us. So yeah, you're kind of you're shutting this off. I'm working on this project and then I'm working on this. You're kind of just back and forth. So you're shutting this one off to go to this, shutting this one off to go back.
I guess it's sort of like the people who are good at it. Maybe it's analogous to people who listen to music and do homework or watch TV and do homework or do something else. Maybe, I don't know.
Sure.
But it to me, I sometimes multitask. I usually don't.
Yeah. It's so I
think I don't because I'm not good at it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's the thing. I don't know. I think there's somebody that was telling me the story about how they study for tests. They're reading through their material and they're watching a sitcom and they're somehow connecting. Have you heard of this? Like they're connecting the sitcom to to the material, and I was like, that is so foreign to me. The idea of having two things that are so different,
It's like word association almost.
almost
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. So it's interesting to think about how differently everyone's brains work. I mean, some people they're just blessed in a different way, and others of us are just I'm probably a little more normal, but I'm more inclined to be a hard worker. Like, I'm not as smart as a lot of other people, but I'm more of a grinder. And so the benefit of that is, if you just, I'm going to be good at jiu-jitsu eventually because I show up every day. Like, so, oh geez, it's been that many years already. Oh yeah, Dan's really getting good at jiu-jitsu. Yeah, he's been doing it for years at this point. So it's just almost inevitable.
Well, don't you think that as you're doing, you're improving your craft of jiu-jitsu, that your bar keeps being raised? So you're probably really good now, but you're not really where you want to be. Like, what's next for you?
For sure.
Like, where's that open lane?
Absolutely.
For DeVerna and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's it's very a lot of fun when I talk to my jiu-jitsu guys. They're all for the most part, they're a bit younger than me, and they've got tons of energy, and they're very excited, and they're thinking about some business stuff in regards to the jiu-jitsu stuff, and their business is where my jiu-jitsu is. Like, their business knowledge is like this much, and their jiu-jitsu knowledge is massive, because they're spending however many hours training a week, and they're spending virtually no time in the business stuff. So it's like, it's an interesting trade-off where you'd want to be and what you want to spend your energy on.
Yeah, I guess that I kind of understand that, because, way back when, in the medical field, a lot of doctors were private practice. They had their own shingle up, but as time goes on, because of the changing landscape of healthcare, including the business of healthcare, it's become cost prohibitive. So you may be a great doctor, but you're a lousy business person.
Yeah.
And you've got to just become an employee at some healthcare facility. So I sort of get that, where they're really great at jiu-jitsu, but how do I run this business?
Right. Yeah. Because the person that, like, my father was a welder. And so when he owned his own business, he wasn't just a welder. He was the guy that went out and quoted the job, and then he put together the billing, and then he lined up the scheduling, and then he did all the welding and all the things that went along with that. And then he had to send out the bill, and then he had to, there's 10 steps.
Right.
Like, for a good welder, he has to do 9 other things pretty much every day that he maybe isn't so good at, or, maybe he's good at a few, or whatever it is. Right. So I think it's interesting when you find, like, because I don't know if you have an area that most excites you in this process of development of all these things. If it's the very beginning find of, this is what I'm trying to solve, or if it's the project being close to its completion, or if there's any part that could be exciting depending upon how the momentum.
I think that it's the find, and then bring it to completion, as opposed to the find and going halfway through. Oh, this is a really crappy idea. But then figure out, well, why was it a crappy idea, or was my thought process wrong? Did I execute this in the wrong way? You're trying to go back and do sort of recon to figure out what went wrong. The forensics of what went wrong. Was it just a bad idea, or was it bad execution, or was it both? But the exciting part is the ones that an idea that you find, you thought about, or enhanced, and you bring it to completion. That's exciting. To me, that's a success story, to bring it to completion, and then hopefully finding a marketplace for it.
Yeah.
That's the whole process is exciting. It's not just, to me, it's not just one or the other. It's like reading a good book. That's what I don't know. There isn't one part that really, I can't say is the most exciting part.
It's the whole
journey.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you go on a vacation, the anticipation is a lot better than the journey itself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So all this is rolled into one, anticipating a good outcome of a project, and seeing it finally completed. The whole process is exciting.
Do you feel like the process, like you have gone through kind of the process enough that you now appreciate the process during the process?
I do. I the yes, I do. But I think during that process, and appreciating part of the process is the different kinds of people that you sort of encounter or have to work with along the way of developing the process. For example, when you're trying to find a consultant for doing certain things in your piece of the puzzle, and that vetting out process and find somebody and figure out which proposal works out best for us. That's kind of exciting too, to find out, well, who's gonna come out ahead of all this, and you sort of bet on a horse,
Sure.
at the beginning, and
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be this group over here, and it totally isn't at the end. I was like, wow,
Right.
that was exciting.
Yeah.
I lost that race.
It's not at all what I thought.
Yeah, it's not what I
Yeah.
thought. It's like,
Yeah.
the horse won,
Yeah.
but that's exciting,
Yeah. And I think keeping an open mind enough to not let the horse that you bet on be the one, that you're convinced,
Right.
because we've all done that. I mean, I've hired quite a few people, and there's a couple of them that I look back, I go, boy, based upon that interview, I would have bet on that guy. I would have gone all in.
Right.
Like, and then you realize that he's really good at that part. Like, he's a really good salesman at that part.
Yeah.
And then if you were just paying attention, but you get blinded by the excitement, or I did. I get blinded. I'm like, wow, like this Kyle, he's the guy. Like, this is going to be great. And then all of a sudden you're like, where's Kyle? Like, what the heck's going on? Like, I really thought Kyle would be here by now. Like, he should really be here. And then he just wasn't. And so the evolution of that was a super interesting story to watch with that guy. Like, I'm thinking of this one particular person, but it's interesting because it's happened to me so many times. I get caught up betting on the horse, and very seldom is it necessarily the horse you think it's going to be.
Yeah. But that's so. Again, all that is it's sort of fun. The whole process is fun.
Yes, and that's something my business coach and I have talked about a great deal, because we set these goals, and he's like, "Oh, okay." So we'd have our coaching call. We have it a couple times a month, and it's January, and let's say it's January 7th, and we're talking about, well, how'd we do? Like, this was the goal for last year. Oh, yeah, we did the goal. Okay, good. Well, how's that feel? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Okay. And we just didn't celebrate. Like we hit the goals because that's what we do. And then, like, there's literally barely a smile. And my business partner says this to me all the time. She's like, what? She's like, you didn't even tell me this was going to happen, and this happened. That's great. Like, and you don't even seem excited. I'm like, yeah, no, it's good, because I'm on to the next thing.
One.
Instead of sitting there, like, I could just sit and reflect and have a cup of coffee and just sit there and be really happy for a few minutes. I don't even do that, and it's interesting that I don't, because it's not deliberate. It's always on. Whether it's part of the grind, or like, do you have a certain way that you celebrate things when you do have successes? Are you sharing it with other people, or you do certain things to kind of create a celebration or a moment, if you will?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, because I guess, like, I don't even know how you would celebrate something. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, what are we celebrating? It's like, okay, like, for example, PMG is a mature company. I mean, it's okay, we had a great year, but we're not really going to celebrate that. I think our achievements are reflected in terms of our performance.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we still have everybody working with us. They seem relatively happy and enjoying what they do, and they're executing at a high level, and let's celebrate that. So it's more like we're not really celebrating business milestones. I don't think we have them. But I don't think we really celebrate them.
I wish I would. So I don't know if I'm not projecting that anybody else should. I wish I would celebrate them more. I wish I would take the other key people, because everything that I should be celebrating is not just Dan doing good. It's the team doing it, and I should be celebrating, if not for myself, for them.
Yeah.
And them, sometimes I don't even tell them. Like, they don't even know what my goals are sometimes.
No.
And we're plugging along.
It's funny to say that, because to show appreciation. I don't know if it's celebration, but it's a celebration of my appreciation. We take a bunch of people on these trips to Vegas for the weekend, or Chicago for the weekend, or it was more for me out of a sense of being selfish. It made me feel better. I don't know if they actually felt better, or if it made a difference for the people that I was celebrating with. And we weren't really celebrating anything, but just that, hey, thanks for being there with us, and doing a great job, type of thing. Celebrating appreciation, maybe. But again, I think that was more for me to feel better about myself than the people that my teammates.
Yeah.
I think they feel it. I think they didn't need it, but I think they didn't ask for it. They never asked for it, but it's something I did. And I'm selfish. I think I did it for myself more than them.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like I had to give back.
Yeah.
A certain way, and that was one way of giving back. I mean, I give back in different ways, but that was one way of giving back a little bit.
Sure.
Again, I always feel like, who said this? The most selfish thing you can do is help somebody else, because it makes you feel better.
You can't outgive it. Like I try this in a lot of different ways, and it seems like every time I'm generous, something else like swoops in and outdoes me. Like I give a little bit of money to church, and then all of a sudden something strange happens and more money funnels back my way or something. And it's not just a money thing. It's acts, it's everything. And you're always working from behind, kind of like, oh, you think I did this, and then, whoa, I'm considered, a lot of people, maybe they say this about you too, but for literally it's been 20 years of people telling me how lucky I am. I'm like, yeah. And now I just like, yeah, I'm the luckiest dude you'll probably ever know. Like if I go sit next to you at a casino, like you're going to want that to happen. Like that's real. Like I sit down at a casino table, blackjack table, and people win. Sometimes I win more than I lose probably, but like other people around me, it's just they win. And we kind of joke about it now. Like it's kind of just a funny thing.
So does it suck to be you, or is it good to be you?
It's good to be me. It's really good. Like I'm super blessed, and there's no real foundation as to why I'm so charmed. I just think some people are just charmed.
And you're charming
like that.
too.
I don't know what charming, but I'm charmed. And but once you start to believe that, it just happens more and more and more of that stuff is how it works. And it's a lot of fun, although I'm sure it's rather annoying. And people, you have those people in your life that I would call them Eeyores. I've referenced this before. They're kind of like, woe is me. And I'm sure I'm really annoying to some of those people. Like they don't really like the fact that I seem to win, like the Super Bowl square thing. Like, don't ask for my $5. I'm going to take all the money. Like that's how that works. And like it happens over and over again. I was in Arizona, and there was all these things that were up for auction. You tear the tickets off, and I'm with this young guy. It's Eric Croak, if anybody wants to call him on this, because it's legit. And he's 23, 24 years old, and we're at this thing. And I said, got this new room in this. I need this type of stuff for my new setup in my new room. I'm just going to win this. And I throw it in the ticket thing. And then they start reading off all of the things, and I said, I think they're about to read off my prize. And Eric's like, whatever. And I start walking up, and they go, Dan DeVerna. And I walk up, and Eric's like, you've got to be shitting me. He's like, what in the world? I'm like, I don't know, man. It's been like this for a long time. And I won this big TV with a sound system and all these things I needed for the room, which by the way, since then, Brody put a lightsaber through it. So, maybe we weren't so lucky with the lightsaber part. But anyways, like that type of stuff happens and just continues to manifest. And the funny thing about that is that sometimes you forget about it. Like you forget the power you have, and then you you're not using it for a while. Then you're like, oh, geez, I forgot I can do that. Like I have that magic.
What do they call those, anti-coolers at casinos?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Like no casino wants that, right? But yeah, no, it's interesting. Do you ever feel like you're a charmed, lucky? I mean, you've done amazing in life. Like, you're doing awesome. Like, do you feel like do you have any insight as to why that happened?
I don't know. I don't feel particularly lucky. I don't have any insight as far as how it happened. I just remember that the only thing I remember, like, growing up is how people set their targets really low. I remember the first time, I was 5th grade, and there aren't a lot of Indians at that time in our town and outside of Boston. And they had this Indian class, like, on Sundays and crap like that. So I was about maybe 7 years old. So it was an elementary school over there. And so you had, like, about, 30 Indian kids in this one classroom doing different projects, like art projects or learning about Indian culture. I remember one of my friends at the table, we all had a table with 3 people on them. And this one kid, I forgot what his name was, I started talking about cars, and I bought a little toy car and, like, a little Hot Wheels thing. So I love this car. It's a Mercedes. And the kid goes, "Oh, Mercedes, I don't want to play with those things." I go, "What do you mean?" I go, "They're great cars. And someday I'd like to get one." Kid looks at me and goes, "Oh, I didn't waste my time. I'll never have a Mercedes." I'm like, "You're like 7 years old. You're giving up now?" I'm 7 years old.
Yeah.
I'm like, "You're giving up now? It's like 7.
Seems early.
Oh, man, it's kind of early to throw a towel in. What's your problem?" So it's stuff like that. I think that was the first one I remember. But there are multiple things sort of like
Sure.
that. Yeah, through the years, and I kept thinking, like, boy, you're really not shooting high enough.
Right.
Why aren't you shooting high enough?
Yeah, I think that one of the interesting things about humans is that we've all got this massive capacity, and, like, some people have all this talent and then they just don't use it. Like, you just say, "I'm giving up at 7 years old," and that's really disappointing.
I thought it was so funny. I was like, "Oh man, it sucks to be you."
It's terrible, right? Yeah, it's funny, but it's the opposite of funny, right?
It's the opposite of funny.
It's the opposite of funny. Like, that's sad. And
It's like, why even at this class? Go home.
right, and a Mercedes, that is a very nice car, but that's not unachievable to anyone.
You would think that.
Really, I mean, that's a car that people could go at 7 years old, if they decided they were going to at some point have a Mercedes, they could make that happen.
They could probably make it happen.
They
I mean,
could probably
if they
make it
really wanted
happen.
one, they could probably do
For
it.
sure.
A crappy old Mercedes, but it's Mercedes, right?
It is a Mercedes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just got to even give up on that. Like, oh God.
Yeah.
It was just sad. I was like, what's wrong with you? Come on, man.
Right. Well, it's funny that at 7 years old, you're paying attention to things like that. That to me is interesting too. Like, could you speak to that? Like, is that the first instance that you remember seeing something like that and making a note mentally? Or were you doing that
I was
often at that young age?
No, I don't know. I just remember that standing out. And it's, I've never forgotten to this day. I guess it must have meant something at some level of maybe, I don't know, don't give up, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to read too much into it. I just thought it was an interesting thing I heard from this other 7-year-old kid, and I thought, wow, it really is awful for you to just give up in life already,
Right.
Maybe that wasn't his goal at all. Maybe his goal was something else. It was, to do charitable things. I have no idea. But I just thought it was an interesting comment made by this somebody my same age. And so the first thing that came to mind is like, boy, you just gave up already.
Yeah. So let's talk about the opposite of that. So now here we are, like, we've been doing business stuff for a while, and I know that both of us have really high aspirations. Like, we're not done yet. Like, you've done pretty good. Here we are. We, from truthfully, all of the things that I expected to do on the business side, I had done by the time I was 40. So I'm 49 now. And so all of it's like, I've exceeded expectations, but yet now you're reassessing, because clearly what I did was I didn't set my goals high enough. Like, if you're in a business for like 13 years or less and you've already hit all the marks, like, you set the wrong marks. And so I'm constantly trying to reset those new marks, and it doesn't seem like any of them are quite as important or as meaningful as what they were originally.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Well, it's funny. I think one of the first goals I've had, another goal that stands out was, and I'm not sure how I picked this age, but I want to be in a position to retire by the age of 40. If I wanted to retire, I could retire.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my goals.
Yes.
Not that it would stop working, but hey, if I just want to not do anything for a while. When I say retire, I guess maybe not do something, be in a position to not do something for a while and do it comfortably without having to, support myself or jeopardize my financial well-being.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of my initial, one of the goals I had set, to be able to be in that position by the age of 40.
Mm-hmm.
But they were to get there though. I sort of knew that I probably wouldn't be doing anything in one sector for too long at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even as a physician, I loved being a doctor. Loved treating patients and having that relationship. But I still know that it probably wasn't my calling. I did it because I liked it, and it was a starting point for me. But I knew it wasn't the only thing I wanted to do. Even when I was in high school.
So you knew that you were going to be a doctor in high school.
I know I wanted to be a doctor in high school.
You knew you wanted to be,
And if I was gonna
but
be a
you didn't think
doctor-
that was it.
Yeah, and I said, if I ever make it as a doctor, I know it's not going to be it. Whatever that it was,
That's super
I just knew that
interesting.
I didn't want to practice, only doing that one thing. It could have been, I guess, an engineer. It could have been anything.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to be stuck doing one thing forever.
that is
I
fascinating.
guess that was what I'm really trying to say.
It's super fascinating because the idea of saying I'm going to get really good at something and then that's a thing I kind of struggle with because you do a certain job and you get better and better at it. You have two options. Either you keep trying to get better at it and you keep honing in on the skill, or you go, I'm going to let what you've done is you've kind of set up this operation and a great team and they're now running that, and that frees you up to go do other cool things that excite you, right?
Things that are different.
Yes. But I'm assuming they're exciting or you wouldn't do them.
Well, again,
Or no?
When I had the idea of starting up, help develop software for the logistics business, it's not an exciting field. It's not, everybody thinks, whoa, let's go into logistics and make that exciting. That's really exciting. I mean, it wasn't that it was exciting. It was like, there's a problem. Let's solve this problem.
Okay.
And that's exciting. That's the problem solve.
Yes. So there's got to be something that's drawing you to it.
It's trying to find a solution to a problem.
Yeah.
So it's not that logistics, again, is an exciting, it may be for some people, it's not for me,
Mm-hmm.
but the process in trying to solve a problem or help solve a problem, being involved in a team that helps solve that problem, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's that's a little different. It's funny that you can move the perspective this far and it looks so different. It's like one of those Circus Soleil shows. You move the seat from this side to this side, move up a little bit, and it's a whole different show.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's just different enough to make me be thinking, wow, because I would have just thought the logistics thing must have really excited him and he decided to get up off the couch and do something about it. But that's not the case.
No.
Like that's not exciting. Like you're just like, oh, this is a problem and I'm put on this earth to fix problems. And then I think this is in my wheelhouse enough and nobody else is doing anything about it. So
that's the whole thing. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. I knew nothing about the transportation industry. I still know very little about it. So it was more like, hey, there's an issue here. Let's see if we can get people together. We really did on a shoestring budget. I got to tell you that project now is almost to completion. We'll be starting the second part of our beta testing next week. I'm so excited about this because it's maybe one of 4 or 5 totally mobile apps that can be used in a meaningful way by small and medium-sized trucking companies or brokers. So I'm excited about that we can bring something to somebody. Hopefully it's going to be profitable. Mm-hmm. But now they have a tool. These end users have a tool that's affordable and meaningful.
yeah.
So that's exciting. It's not that, wow, trucking, it's great. Let's all go.
But it's important.
It's important. You need,
It's
you
very
need
it's
it.
very important, and anything you can do to have small
And
business
to
guys.
And to make their jobs easier, to me, that would be very meaningful. If I can make someone's life easier, a broker, a carrier, a driver, a shipper, a receiver, if we can make their jobs a lot easier with a meaningful piece of software that they can use on a daily basis, they can help grow their business. That, to me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Even if I know nothing about the business, to give somebody the opportunity, that's exciting. That's very rewarding for me.
Yeah. I could see that.
I mean, could you imagine if someone even starts it with one truck and a trailer, one-man show, they can use this device, all they need is a smartphone, they don't even need a PC. On the smartphone, they grow from one truck to 5 trucks in 1 year because of what we did, or this helped them achieve that goal.
Right.
That makes me feel really happy.
Yeah, that's meaningful.
That person gets to employ other people. It keeps the economy going. So, I mean, to me, I always call things like that. I don't know what to call it, but I've always used a term in my mind, responsible capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that let's give people what they truly can use that makes a difference in their day-to-day life, at their workplace.
Yeah. That's so you when you think about that job, like what those guys are doing, like that's not an easy job. So anything you can do that would make, like, it's kind of like my dad being a welder. Like, being a welder, no one would say that's an easy job. I don't think anyone would say driving truck is an easy job.
No.
So if you can take away of those 10 other things that my dad had to do, or the 9 other things, the way I explained it, and you can take away or make 2 or 3 of those other parts easier, which is what you're doing with the logistics business, like that's, you really are letting the guy drive the truck and kind of outsourcing some of the other things that he probably finds difficult, right?
We would hope so. One thing that simple stuff like from dispatching to finding a driver to take to haul a load if you're working at a medium-sized trucking company, finding that individual and communicating with each other without having to waste time sending an email or sending a text message or making a phone call. This is now done. It's all automated. So you can have flow of information without having to actually call somebody or send. Everyone's informed of an action uniformly across the board, meaning from the customer's perspective or shipper through the carrier or broker to the receiver. So everyone's on the same page as far as where's my load, where's my freight, who has my freight, what stage is it at, that kind of thing. And it's all communicated. Before it was, hey, with a phone call or an email or a text message or whatever. Yeah. So now we've pretty much automated that whole communication flow pattern.
Yeah, because before, I'm assuming that somebody came and picked up the load, and they, until they showed up to the dock to unload it, they didn't know, are they ahead of schedule? Are they behind schedule?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the flight tracker.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, this is where it's at in the process. And they don't have to call them. They don't have to, text message them. The guy's driving. He's focusing on driving.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's exciting.
That's pretty neat.
So
That's very exciting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So to be able to kind of do that, I still think it's extremely fascinating that you have like such a diverse group of different projects that you're working on. Like definitely almost as much of a serial problem solver as you are a serial entrepreneur. Like it's like, oh, I see this and I think that could fix that. And couldn't we do that? Or the exercise thing, or, insert problem here. And, has that been something you've been doing more now that you've gotten the flexibility with PMG, or do you feel like that was kind of always the way your mind worked all the way through, but now you have the resources and the time to do it? Or like, speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think the thought process, the mindset of trying to, like, I hate math. I'm horrible at math, But I think I can solve. I like to solve problems in a different sense, more workflow patterns, processes, issues, maybe something a little bit more that's spatial and not mathematical, if you will. I don't know. I'm just bad at math, but I think that I trying to solve an issue in a conceptual way is what I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the mentality has always been there. I don't think that I've, as far as I can remember, trying to address issues in terms of a simple thing. Like I remember I never had a decent tennis bag. There was a problem with these tennis bags. I wish it was made this way rather than that way, type of thing. Small stuff like that. System improvement issues, product improvement issues. Is what I've always. Not to confuse that with I'm always complaining about something.
Yeah.
I'm always worried about like how can we do this better? Because there's always room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you improve on something that's there, that's not so great, or something that's really great, and how do we make that better, that's meaningful for people? So I've always been like, what can you do that's meaningful for somebody? Not just for the sake of building a new widget, but is that widget meaningful for somebody? And does it improve their day-to-day tasks, their workload or their lifestyle, or whatever it may be, to free them up to do something else? Like for example, just with our logistics software, and one of the goals was to reduce time that it takes for someone to be on a phone or send an email, generate an email or text message, or find out where something is. Well, we've developed this where you don't have to make those phone calls or send those emails or you don't have to manually communicate with somebody. It's done for you. So now you're freed up to do something else that maybe would make your business more effective or grow your business in a different way. So if we're trying to save time so they can reallocate those resources into doing something else.
Yeah. And they can do more things that are in their wheelhouse.
Yeah. Or, whatever.
And outsource the other stuff.
Whatever, if it's 5% of your time, 10% of your time, or maybe more, what you do at that time gives them that kind of flexibility to do whatever.
So that system, is it going to connect like a whole bunch of different people with the same purpose, just different pieces, like the broker, the driver, the person that needs the freight moved? Those are all connected through this like
software,
virtual space kind of.
Right.
So all the bidding and all that stuff moves to one hub.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
And also, if you have existing clients, they can still use it. Communicate with their existing clients without having to look for loads or look for freight to move. If they already have enough freight they're hauling, but they can do it in a more efficient way, communicate in a more efficient way, and not have to always make a phone call or make manual communicate with somebody.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
That's great. Are there any other new projects, any new problems that you're trying to solve, anything that's going on that's up in your brain that you're just starting to get some of the meat off the bone type of stuff?
Nothing new since we last spoke. I mean, we're developing software for the political arena. I don't know if I told you. Yeah, so
absolutely.
That's still going on. We're continuing to develop that, and I just met with this exercise device. We met with some people at the University of Toledo, so some students who are working on that.
That's fun.
So that's fun talking to young people.
That seems like that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope it's going to be worth their while.
Yeah.
So nothing new, but some things have progressed since last time we spoke.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Good. So anything else we should be talking about?
You're the driver here.
Yeah. I thought that the one thing I wanted to make sure that I hit on before I let you go was like you have the if I was going to kind of label you, like you have a very interesting career because like whenever you say somebody's a doctor, they automatically tie that to the medical field. And so I think about, I know a lot of people that are like attorney, like you remind me of a little bit to one of my friends who's an attorney, but then he just didn't, like, he practiced law for like almost no time. And then he started doing other things, doing these other things. And so I think it's fascinating. It doesn't feel like you have, even though the medical background is where you're grounded and where you began, it doesn't seem like you necessarily, that you feel like that's your place in life. And so, when you go back and you look back at your life, and hopefully you live to be as old as you want to live, and then you're looking back, I mean, do you think, like, what's going to be the thing on the resume? Do you think it's the doctor part, or do you think it's going to be like one of these things that's in the hopper that's brewing, or just the combination of, gosh, people are going to look back and say, this was just a really well-rounded, driven guy that just, like, he just left it all out there and tried as hard as he could at everything. When he saw something, he saw a problem, he fixed it. Like, I think that, to me, I think that's the coolest thing in talking to you for the last couple years, is just somebody that sees a problem and fixes it, because literally everybody sees a problem and steps over it, or they walk around it, or whatever they are doing. They're not thinking it's their responsibility to fix the problem. And I feel like on some level, like I mean, what a flattering comparison, I think, but Elon Musk is like, well, we got to, like, this is happening. Like, you guys, we got to do something about this. I'm going to spearhead this thing. So I'm not really totally comparing you to him, but that mindset of somebody's going to do something about it. It doesn't look like anybody here is doing anything about it. I'm going to do anything about it. Do you guys want to help me do something about this? Like, maybe I could give you this part and this part. Like, I don't even know what I just said there, except I rambled, but that's kind of what I hear. I feel like I hear some of that.
I think if you're asking what my legacy needs to be, I would really love for people to leave something behind where people said that was really worthwhile having, that made things better for me, things easier for me.
Yeah.
Whether it was from a business perspective or a personal perspective, just if that would mean a lot to me. It's not like I'm seeking out fame or anything like that, but I think that it would just make me happy knowing that, gosh, if I did something that helped your business or your something that you do as a hobby, whatever that if it made it better for you, if it enhanced what you were trying to do and it was worth your while, if it was meaningful for you, that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
To do something that's meaningful to me is very important. I always ask somebody, ask people, like, what can we do that's meaningful? If we make this change, is it a meaningful change? Or why are we doing this if it's not meaningful for somebody at some level?
Yeah.
It has to be meaningful, right?
I think it does.
To be worth someone's while.
Right.
So let's make it worth someone's while.
Yeah.
I remember once I was in St. Martin, and it was so funny. This kid taught me so much. I was probably about 29 that time, and I was on the beach in St. Martin on the Dutch side, and I was talking to the kid's mom, and the kid comes by. He was about 13 at the time, and she's showing the kid, "Hey, look what I bought, blah blah blah." She apparently she spent a lot of money for it, and the kid looks over at his mom and goes, "You spent that much on that? Mom, if you spend that kind of money, don't you want to look like you spend that kind of money?" To me, that meant a lot. Meaning, if you're gonna do something, make it worth your while. If you're gonna spend X amount of dollars on something, make it look like you spend X amount of dollars on something. Not like, oh, it looks like this $1,000 product looks like a $200 product. If you're gonna do something meaningful. And that kid taught me something that day. 13-year-old kid. It was a simple comment. I thought it was amazing that he would tell his school's mom, if you're gonna spend that kind of money, don't you want to make it look like you spend that kind of money?
Yeah.
It means that saying means a lot.
Well, and
me,
it can.
to me.
I think it's very meaningful, but I also think it could be pivoted to time.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how much time. If you're going to spend this much time on something, don't you? Don't you want it done all the way?
So 4-dimensional, right?
Right. Yeah. Because I think that's the thing that I have a problem with sometimes is I have so many things to get done that sometimes I'm not. You're checking to or rushing through to check the box or I highlight things. I have color codes for everything. So I'm so excited. Like if the most exciting part of my goal getting done, truthfully, is it might be that 4 seconds if I took that long to highlight it. Like, so that's my celebration. My celebration is like,
Checklist. Done.
man, that feels
good.
I wish it was longer. Like I should write it out in bigger letters or something and have to go across it. But that's like the reward
That's your
part.
reward, right.
It is. It's funny that simple little act can be so monumental.
Right.
But it's not, it doesn't last for days, doesn't even last for minutes, right? But it is very important, and it's the way that
It's your own pat on your own back.
It is.
No one's going to do it for you.
No
No one's going to appreciate it as much as you do.
Yeah.
Once you cross that line off,
Right.
you're going to be the one who says, I know what it took to cross that line off.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to know.
Well, the other part is that you do want it to look, if you spend $1,000 on it, you want to look like you spent 1,000 or 2,000 on it. Yeah. Like you definitely don't want, so this is where the discipline part comes in, because you don't really want to cheat yourself on that. You don't really want to do it. I could probably check that off, but we both know, like, and I've done it.
You can't cheat yourself.
It's a real bummer.
Things don't work out well when you start cheating yourself.
I lied to my business coach. Probably it was double-digit years ago, like near the very beginning. And he asked for certain numbers, and I don't remember the details of what I did, but it was a bunch of crap, right? And then I was like thinking about it soon after, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, seriously? Like, you're literally paying this guy this much money, and now you're going to lie to him? Like, what's the whole point? What are you doing? Like, you need to reevaluate, like, what you're doing here, man. Because that's, like, it's just the what's the point? Like, what is the point?
Doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, like, we didn't hire the business coach to impress the business coach. We hired the business coach to make you better and have somebody hold you accountable.
Right.
So, yeah.
Defeating the purpose.
It's completely. But you get caught up being in the whole human thing. It's very complicated.
Yep, I did that.
I did it. I told him I was going to do it, and I did it. No, I didn't.
You'll never know.
You'll never know. Like,
business
but
fail,
I know.
Business fails.
Yeah,
You're knocking on
right.
my door, Ned. You got a room?
Right.
What's your name again?
Right. I don't know you. I only know successful Dan. I don't know the one that failed.
No, fake Dan.
What are you talking about? Fake Dan. Oh, it's good stuff, man. Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed our time together. It's always great. Always. We had a lot of follow-up stuff. Like, of all the people I've communicated with, I've just gotten so much feedback from people that talk about how interesting. They're like, you should have him on all the time. I'm like, I totally will try to do that.
Crap the whole time.
We can just talk about crap. Like, we'll get into some really goofy conversations, I would expect sometimes. Yeah. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, man.
It's awesome. Thanks for everything. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.
DeVerna offers products and services using the following business names: Creative Financial Partners, Insurance and Financial Services, Ameritas Investment Company, LLC, AIC, member FINRA, SIPC, Security Investments, Ameritas Advisory Services, AAS Investment Advisory Services. AIC and AAS are not affiliated with Creative Financial Partners. Products and services are limited to residents of states where the representative is registered. This is not an offer of securities in any jurisdiction, nor is it specifically directed to a resident of any jurisdiction. As with any security, request a prospectus from a representative. Read it carefully before you invest or send money. A representative will contact you to provide requested information. Representatives of AIC and AAS do not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney regarding the situation.
Whew. Thanks for watching.